بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. There have been many videos over the years that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to present and share regarding seeking knowledge. The virtues of it, the beauties of it, the ups of seeking knowledge, and even the downs of seeking knowledge, and the struggles and the sacrifices, and the legacy of knowledge and the people of knowledge, of past and of present. Many videos we've done on this, walillahi alhamd. And from that which we've spoken on, the content, much of the content of those videos is how to become successful in seeking knowledge, how to do it the right way, and also what is considered to be the wrong way, that which will either unnecessarily extend your path, slow you down, make it longer, or that which will stunt your path, keep you from reaching your full potential, and unfortunately, certain things which will destroy you and destroy your path. Not a hindrance or detour, work ahead, they say, at 500 feet. No, the road is shut down. You stop seeking ilm. Whether you stop seeking knowledge overseas, and even worse than that, you come back to America or Canada or the UK, and then you stop seeking knowledge. And then you do what? Then you stop seeking knowledge. You quit altogether. So there are do's and there are don'ts. And from that which we've mentioned and explained as well, a prime source, not the only source, but a prime source of learning these do's and don'ts, and learning the path, the way, and how to tread it, and how not to tread it, and what to avoid from the ways, is kutub talab al-ilm, the books pertaining to seeking knowledge. The books that weren't written as compendiums, comprehensive works. Sahih Bukhari talks about knowledge, Tirmidhi talks about knowledge, this explanation, but the actual books that were written and only written for you, the student of knowledge, and to show you what to do and what not to do, and how to do it, and how to avoid those things. Everybody clear on this? We've mentioned this in many classes. What are the kutub, the books, whether they're ancient books written over 1,000 years ago, that's considered to be ancient. 1,000 years is ancient, let alone 1,200 years ago. Or whether it be the books that are considered to be classical, 700 years ago, 800 years ago, 600 years ago, etc. Even that can consider to be ancient as well. It's a relative term. And then we have the modern day books, the contemporary books, in which the people of knowledge, whether they're scholars, students, seekers, searchers of ilm, they wrote and they put things down, they documented things to help you out, to teach you and to show you that it can be done if you give the necessary sacrifice. It can be done if you're dedicated and devoted. It can be done. You can reach bidhnillahi ta'ala your goal if you're obsessed with ilm, if you're obsessed with knowledge. And while you're treading the path and you're seeking, you're memorizing, you're studying, you're learning, you're sitting, certain things that you must avoid, and other things you should avoid, and it's best to avoid them. And there are different levels and stages and stations and chambers. It's not on one degree. The books, the authors, the styles of those books, etc. Naam, tayyib. And also from the books that we've mentioned before and done a brief review on, is one of the most important of those books, which is called Jaami Bayan al-Ilmi wa Fadlih. Jaami Bayan al-Ilmi wa Fadlih, by Abu Umar Yusuf ibn Abdul Barr, rahimahullah, who was from the great scholars of the 5th century, dying specifically 463. I mean, the ulama, they say that he was from Cordoba, Qurtubi, who was considered to be the West, or the Islamic West, including Spain, Portugal, Andalusia, North Africa, Gibraltar, etc. Jabal Tariq, right? Jabal Tariq. And he turned Jabal Tariq to what? Gibraltar. Huh? Like there are many other transformations and things that were distorted from his original pronunciation, intentionally or unintentionally. Unintentionally because language gets passed and spread, this tongue, this pronunciation, or to hide and to hinder the reality. To hide and to hinder the reality. And we don't want to go off our topic right now with regards to history and how certain people play games with certain historical data. Whether it's the name, whether it's the pronunciation, Jabal Tariq, Gibraltar, Al-Jabr or algebra, cipher, zero, or whether it's a geographical game. There's Egypt and then there's Africa. Everybody understand this? They say to study, there's Egypt and then there's what? As if Egypt isn't what? Part of Africa. And there's a reason behind that. And there are many, many other games and tricks if you read the books of history that were done intentionally or unintentionally. In most cases, it was done intentionally to keep the people from knowing the truth. That we were the only ones that did things and discovered things and made things and conquered people and lands and created and produced science, etc. Etc. We don't want to go too far off the topic right now. But the point is, Cordoba, Taib, was where this great scholar was, or what he was associated with. So Ibn Abdul Barr, rahimahullah ta'ala, he wrote this book, and he called his book Jaami Bayan al-Ilm Fadlih. And if he died in the 5th century, then obviously there were many scholars who came before him. Obviously there were what? Many who came before him. But he still was in an early time. And his book was still considered to be groundbreaking. It still was considered to be groundbreaking. How he wrote it, how extensive, how exhaustive, his writing style, etc. Now, so there are many, many, many chapters that is mentioned or that are mentioned and that he mentioned here in this book. And to just give you, a show of how beneficial and how extensive the book is, we'll read bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala the index. We'll summarize it. The first is Khutbatul Mu'allif, is the introduction of the author. وغرضه أو وعرضه أهم موضوعات كتاب إجمالا. And after he starts off his book, what are the most important reasons, or before that, what are the most important pieces of information in his book? What he's talking about in the book. It then says, باعث المؤلف على تأليف كتابه. The reason why the author wrote this book, and which we should know from reading the book, he wrote it based off of a request. A seeker of knowledge, a disciple came to him and asked him certain questions about ilm. What is ilm? And what isn't ilm? How should it be sought? How should you do? What should you do? So on and so forth. So he wrote this book. And there are many other books like this, in which the ulama, they wrote basically answers. They wrote a letter, or they started writing a letter, then it turned into a book. Then he mentions the hadith, من سئل عن علم فكتمه جاء يوم القيامة ملجما بلجام من نار. That whoever is asked about something, whoever is asked about some knowledge, and he hides the knowledge, he conceals it, or he doesn't unveil it or reveal it, he hides this knowledge, he will have a bridle of fire around his neck on the day of judgment. He'll be punished severely for someone asking you something and you not giving the answer, with the proper conditions, of course. But that's what the hadith says. The hadith doesn't mention anything about proper conditions. But we know that's understood in light of other things. You know the knowledge. There isn't someone who's more knowledgeable in your presence. The person isn't a person of fitna, talib fitna, someone who just wants to make trouble, asking certain questions. But there's an actual need. And you know and you don't tell him, there's a punishment on the day of judgment. That's why he wrote the book, because of this hadith. طيب. Then after that, the next chapter, it says here, معاودة المؤلف في ذكر سبب تأليف كتابه. It's the same chapter, but he speaks on the part of the index or the table of contents. He speaks on why he wrote the book a second time. الكلام حول حديث طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم. Then the author speaks on the hadith that says seeking knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim. Seeking knowledge is mandatory upon each and every Muslim. What does that mean? Seeking knowledge in every Muslim. تفريع أبواب فضل العلم وأهله. And then the author, he goes on to diversify the mentioning of the proofs and evidences that prove the beauty and the virtue and the superiority of knowledge. Allah says this, the hadith says that, the angels, the grave, this, that, diversifying the proofs and the evidences that show one thing, and that is the superiority of what? Knowledge and seeking it. How excellent of a thing it is. Then it says, باب قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم ينقطع عمل ابن آدم بعده إلا من ثلاث. From that is the chapter that he mentions that the deeds of the sons of Adam will cut, or they'll be cut off, they'll stop. Except for three things. When you die, the good deeds that you used to do are no longer of use to you, with a continuous meaning. You get the reward, inshallah, in your grave. See paradise, have an expansive grave, but they won't continue to flow. Except for three. Like business. People that say, well, you made it now, you got signed. What's the problem? You never have to worry about money again. The money in what, 2 years, a year, 5 years will be what I would say? Gone. You pay for your lawyer, you pay for your agent, you pay taxes, you pay this, this friend, this high school homie, this person, this car, this jewelry. Next time you have what? Nothing. Because the money isn't what? Flowing. Cash flow. Everybody understand the concept? You having a lot of money is one thing. Even if it's a lot of money to make you rich for the rest of your life, but if you don't manage it properly, and you're constantly pulling from it, and it doesn't continue to flow, then it will what? Everybody clear on this? So all of the deeds of everyone, the deeds will stop. Except for three. And from them is beneficial knowledge. Is what? Beneficial knowledge. Which is one of the greatest virtues of being a student of knowledge. Then it says, Bab qawli sallallahu ala al-khayri kifa'ili. He who shows people and pushes people and steers people in the right direction will receive a similar reward. If you teach someone how to make wudu properly, then you'll get a what? Similar reward of making that wudu each and every time. So just imagine that, yaqi. You taught a class on wudu at the MSA. How many people there are making the wudu incorrectly? They don't know. They've never been taught the proper way. How many salats they may make? They may live for 30, 40, 50, 60 years after you. And you taught them the proper way of making wudu. So just imagine how many benefits and rewards you get being a teacher of knowledge in a week, a month, a year, 5, 10, 20, 30 years. That's a lot of hasanat. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Then it says, Babu qawlihi sallallahu la hasada illa fitnatain. The chapter that states the Prophet sallallahu words, there's no jealousy except for one or two types of men. There should be no jealousy except for one or two types of men or one or two types of people. And from those people is the one whom Allah gives the book, the kitab, and he recites it. Other narrations say what? Hikmah, or the wisdom. Allah gives him what? Wisdom. He teaches it, he spreads it. Tayyib? Moving forward. Bab qawlihi sallallahu man yuridillahu bihi khayrun yufaqihu fi ddin. The next chapter is the Prophet statement. Whoever Allah wants good for, he gives them fiqh of the religion. So you're learning your deen and being a student of knowledge is a sign that Allah loves you and Allah is blessing you and Allah wants good for you. Bab tafdeel al-ilmi ala al-ibadah. The next chapter is proving that seeking knowledge is more virtuous than worship, meaning the extra worship, the voluntary worship. If you have a choice between making extra rak'at or reading Fath al-Bari, it's more of a virtue to do what? Read Fath al-Bari than making those extra rak'at. If you have an option between making additional fasts or eating and drinking, which gives you the energy to study and to seek beneficial ilm and spread it, then you would do what? وهكذا. If it came down to it. Push came to shove. There's no time or space for both. Next chapter he says, Or it states, باب قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم العالم والمتعلم شريكان في الأجر. That the master and the learner are both partners in the reward, meaning the student and the teacher. Next chapter, or it says here, تفضيل العلماء على الشهداء. The scholars being more virtuous than the martyrs. The people of knowledge having a higher level than those who are martyrs. And we all know the virtue of what? Someone who dies fi sabilillah in Allah's cause. Next chapter, باب ذكر حديث صفوان بن عسال في فضل العلم. Mentioning the hadith of Safwan ibn Asal concerning the virtue of knowledge. And that is the hadith in which they asked the Prophet ﷺ about wiping over the leather socks and wudu being broken. And he mentioned about that إِنَّ الْمَلَائِكَ لَتَضَعُ أَوْ لَتَضَعُ أَجْنِحَتَهَا. That the angels, they do what? Lower their wings for the student of knowledge. Next chapter, باب ذكر حديث أبي الدرداء في ذلك وما كان في مثل معناه. Is the narration of Abu Darda radiallahu anhu regarding the prophets are the who? The scholars are the inheritors, the heirs of the prophets. Next chapter, باب دعاء رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لمستمع العلم وحافظه ومبلغه. How the Prophet ﷺ made dua for the one who hears knowledge, listens to it, memorizes it, and passes it on. He makes tabligh. Next chapter, باب قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم من حفظ على أمتي 40 حديثا. Anyone who memorizes 40 hadiths for my nation. Anyone who memorizes 40 hadiths for my nation. Is that an authentic narration? Is that authentic hadith? What's important is that's in the book. Proving from the virtues of what? Knowledge and seeking ilm. Next chapter, it says باب جامع في فضل العلم. He says a totally comprehensive chapter regarding the virtue of the ilm. And he mentions many hadiths and narrations, athar in that chapter. Now, next chapter he says here, باب كراهية كتابة العلم وتخليده في الصحف. He says that it's disliked to write down knowledge and to immortalize it in books, on paper. Dislike to write down knowledge and to keep it only on paper. The next chapter says, باب ذكر الرخصة في كتاب العلم. The chapter that allows a person to write down knowledge and that it's not absolutely disliked and it's not absolutely a bad thing, but it's a bad thing if you only write it down and it's never ever here. And you always have to carry it around with you. You always have to what? Carry it around. And also just letting the Islamic spirit and the culture of the Arabs to die away. And that is to rely upon what? Memory. To rely upon memory. That's knowledge stays alive like that. And just look at the history of this country. The history of this country. You look at the indigenous people of this country and how they lived and how they carried on, how they knew their fathers and their tribes and the wars and the battles and their tales and their mythology. Read about the history of the indigenous inhabitants of the United States of America and what they believed and what their history was. And it was passed down what? Orally. It's passed down orally. Now we know there's a virtue in a book, no question about that. Just like there's a virtue in the pen. Allah mentions that in the Quran. Noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun. Allah says noon, and He swears by the pen and that which they what? That which they write down. So there's a tremendous virtue in writing and reading. There's no question about that. And there's also tremendous virtue in having it what? In the heart. And from the ways or from the things that prove this is that when you memorize something, it remains what? Abdul Qawi is always what? Alive. The old tradition never dies. Everyone will talk and listen by the campfire, at the dinner table. But how many people read? There's not a guarantee that people are going to what? Read. But there is a guarantee that people are going to what? And they're going to talk. And if I asked you right now, tell me a story from your grandmother, from your grandfather, tell me some folklore or some superstition from your country or your culture, I'm pretty sure that at least everyone could do what? They could tell one of them. But if I said, tell me a book that was in your house from your childhood years and the author and this and that, how many people could say it? Not everybody though. This is right or wrong. Old tradition is what? It's like fire. It's lively. And that which is in a book is like what? Everybody clear this? The concept? This is what the Salaf meant by that. It doesn't mean that you can't write anything down. Everybody clear this? You clear this, Akhi? It doesn't mean that you can't take notes. But your notes should what? Always have legs and wings. Moving forward. The next chapter says, Babun fi mu'aradatil kitab. Comparing your notes. Comparing the scrolls, the scriptures, comparing what's written down. What'd you get? I got this. Play it. No, I wrote something else. Let's check our notes. And then we rewrite them when we go home, because in the class we're doing what? If you're even writing notes, you may just be listening and paying attention, which may be more beneficial than writing notes. Al-Muhim, in the old days in which the scholar would give hadith, he would make tahdith, he would make imla, he would dictate to the students, and they would get it, and they wanted to have ijaz, they wanted to pass on the hadith, Islam. He would do what? Write it down. Then you go home and you do what? Rewrite it and you fix it. And we're all sitting in the class, we compare it to make sure that the notes are accurate. Everybody clear on this? The etiquette of a hadith disciple. Moving forward. باب الأمر بإصلاح اللحن والخطأ في الحديث وتتبع ألفاظه ومعانيه. The command to fix mistakes, grammatical mistakes, pronunciation or mistakes of pronunciation. And always to follow up the wordings and the meanings of the hadiths. To make sure that you memorize it properly, you're not mispronouncing it, you're not saying it incorrectly. And to have the basic meanings of what you're writing down and seeking. Also, the next chapter, he says, باب فضل التعلم في الصغر والحظ عليه. The virtue of learning knowledge at a young, tender age. The virtue and the encouragement to learn knowledge when you're what? When you're young. It's easy to memorize when you're younger. Less stress, less problems, less sins, less this and less that. And most importantly, Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah, he quotes in his Nasiha li Ashab al-Hadith, my advice to the people of Hadith, the students of Hadith, he mentions the narration, تَفَقَّهُ قَبْلَ أَن تَسُودُوا. He says, seek knowledge before you take authority. Seek knowledge before you take authority. And it doesn't just mean that you're going to be busy when you take authority, which is a major issue. You're a leader now. You have no time to sit and study. But most importantly is you have an ego. And the older you get, the stronger your ego becomes. And the younger you are, the more humble you are. I want to learn from you, Mufti, but don't holler at me like that again. Or don't try to hit me with this stick. I'm not going for that. Or some brothers, they may say, la, akhi. Is the little kid going to say that? He's not. Someone that's younger, they're not going to say that. You're older, you have more of a what? Your chest is stuck out more. I'm a leader. I'm an imam. And not even that, it's hard for me to humble myself and for me to be seen sitting and studying. They're going to look at you like, you're our leader. What are you doing sitting with him? It's difficult. So seek knowledge before what? Before you get in that position, in which is hard. You understand this, Mukhtar? The importance of learning now, studying now. And there's nothing wrong with giving and practicing and pouring a little bit out of your cup, but that's the minority. 80% studying, 20% giving. And then after you study for some years, and you have something under your belt, something solid, tangible, you actually study tangibly under somebody or someone or some people, then it's the exact opposite. You give more than what you learn. Everybody understand this? Moving forward. Next chapter says, باب حمد السؤال والإلحاح في طلب العلم وذم ما منع منه. He says the praise of asking questions. And for a person to be a little stubborn and a little obstinate in asking questions. Persistent in what? And asking certain things. And preventing anything or anyone that stops the people from doing this. There's a time in which you should be inquisitive and you should ask many questions. And we know there are other times in which you what? You shouldn't. And it's best to remain silent. Don't ask no questions. Be quiet. Just pay attention. It's a balance. There's this and there's what? There's that. There's different levels. Right? Next chapter he says, باب ذكر الرحلة في طلب العلم. Traveling to seek knowledge. Traveling to seek knowledge and the wisdom of traveling to seek knowledge. When do you travel? How do you travel? Where do you go? And why do you go? And we've done a separate lecture on this, on the culture of Ahl Hadith regarding traveling and its virtues and its importance. Next chapter he says, باب الحظ على استدامة الطلب والصبر فيه على اللأواء والنصب. He says the recommendation to continue your studies and to be patient upon the harms and the exhaustion and the fatigue that you encounter. That's a deep chapter right there. Don't stop studying, ya akhi. I was in Medina, I didn't graduate, I came back to America. Okay, no problem. Keep studying in America. I went to Medina, I graduated. Okay, you do what? Keep studying. I went to Egypt, I went to Morocco, I went to Yemen, I went to South Africa, I went there, you do what? Keep studying, keep reading, keep listening, keep making review. Regardless of the level. Someone who studied for many years is not the same one who's a beginner, in which he has to sit in every class. And no, it's a different type of study. In the library, whatever it is, but what? Keep going. And to be patient upon the hardships. Don't drop out of school saying it's hard, it's difficult, I don't have no food, I don't have no money, I want to get married. People are talking about me because I'm studying with this sheikh. They say I'm not Salafi because I studied in South Africa and I'm this, I'm that. Be patient upon the harms and the abuse. You keep studying, you keep learning. Everybody clear on this? Moving forward. باب جامع في الحال التي يسأل بها العلم. He says here, a comprehensive chapter regarding how knowledge is to be asked, or how one is supposed to ask about knowledge. يسأل بها العلم. How? What's the etiquette of asking and making review and things like this. Next chapter, باب كيفية الرتبة في أخذ العلم. How to seek knowledge systematically and progressively. The stages and the steps. You want to seek it all in one day? No. You want to move like a tortoise for the rest of your life? What? No. Certain times you move slow, and other times you what? Aggressively, quick, fast. Certain times you multitask, certain times you jump, sometimes you have to baby steps, spoon-fed. It's levels. Knowledge doesn't come overnight. It doesn't what? Doesn't come overnight. It doesn't what? Doesn't come overnight. It takes years for this, Ahmed. Years that you have to invest to get to a certain level. Says Babu ذكر ما روي عن لقمان الحكيم من وصية ابنه. Was mentioned regarding the advice that the wise Luqman gave to his son. Luqman al-Hakim. باب آفة العلم وغائلته أو وغائلته وإضاعته وكراهة وضعه عند من ليس بأهله. He says the chapter of the main problem with knowledge and the treacherous pitfall of knowledge. And giving it and spreading it to those who do not deserve it. Disseminating knowledge in a place or to a people who are what? Unworthy, unbefitting. That's a deep chapter right there. Whether it is speaking or speaking on certain things. There's certain people in certain places that are unbefitting for knowledge. You don't deserve this at all, period. And there are other times in which they deserve something, but not in this depth, not on this level. Not these complicated issues. It's going to cause confusion. They're not going to respect it, so on and so forth. And a very interesting thing that he mentions here with regards to the statement that says, إِنَّ وَاضِعَ الْعِلْمِ عِنْدَ غَيْرِ أَهْلِهِ كَمُقَلِّدِ الْخَنَازِيرِ الْلُؤْلُؤُ وَالذَّهَبِ أو كَمَا جَاءَ. The narration that states that the one who puts knowledge in its improper place and among us undeserving people, unworthy people, is like one who puts a pearl necklace around a hog. One who takes a pearl necklace and he puts it around a pig. And very interesting, if you talk to brothers who are reverts to Islam, who used to be Christians, and they were studious, and they know things about the Gospels, it's a famous statement quoted and attributed to Isa alayhi salam. Do not cast thy pearls among what? Swine. And it's mentioned here, that athar from the Injil. Do not cast thy pearls, what? Among swine. Don't give someone something that he can't appreciate, Sheikh? Don't share it with him. It may be a line of poetry or lines of poetry. Street poetry, don't what? Don't share it, akhi. He ain't going to value it. Right? He's going to use it against you and bring it up, throw it at you. Moving forward. Moving forward. We don't have no bad days, Moving forward, he says, باب وهيبة المتعلم للعالم. It says the awe and the respect that the learner should have for the teacher. The respect that the learner should have for the what? For the teacher. That's a very long discussion. And many of us, we have violated and infringed this etiquette. Something that we say, how we sit, what we do, how we dress, how we talk, a joke, whatever the case may be. Moving forward, he says, باب في ابتداء العالم جلساؤه بالفائدة وقوله سلوني. The chapter regarding that the scholar, the learner, the master, he is the one that can throw something to his students and start them off with a what? A fa'idah. And he doesn't have to wait for them to always what? Ask him. But he gives them a fa'idah, or he asks them a question. Everybody clear on this? And when the Prophet ﷺ said, Saluni, he said, ask me. He said what? He told the companions to do what? To ask him. Encouraging people, to ask. Next chapter, he says, Babu Manazil al-Ulama. The chapter of the levels of the ulama, the learned. They're on different what? Different levels. They're not on one level. And obviously that's going to be a capital mistake, putting someone on a level which he does not belong. Up or down. Many people, they make this error. And they only think about what? That's it. And they don't think about what? Taking someone and what? Or even deeper than that, this only applies to this select scholars that they handpick. The foul hypocrisy. They say, Fulan is disrespecting the scholars. He's defaming the scholars. He speaks ill of the scholars. Ya akhi, over the last 20 years in the UK or America, wherever you are, how many scholars have you disrespected? How many articles have you taken down from your website? And how many articles are still up there, or YouTube videos in which you're praising, as they say, hard body, right? He's this, he's that. Anyone who speaks about him is evil, and this and that. And that was 15 years ago. And nowadays, they may call him a dog. He's a jahil, he's a mubtadi, he's an innovator. He's the worst fitna since Fir'aun. Was he not? Is he still not a scholar? Were you not praising him fanatically? Everybody understand this? So it's a game. The scholar's blood is sacred. His honor is poison. His flesh is poison. Apply that to what? Everyone. And not just your scholar or scholars, your hand-picked scholars. And you just do what? Pick them up and drop them and discard them when you want, because they go against this scholar or you. So once more, stop the what? Hypocrisy. Don't make us expose you. Stop lying to the people. You don't respect scholars. You only respect scholars that help your agenda, that help you control people and run people and put money in your pocket and give you power over people. And the proof for that is, look over the last 20 years. How many scholars visited you, visited your markaz, gave high praise of you? They went against this scholar, they went against your agenda, and you did what? Spat them out with no respect. And by Allah, I ask you, how does a man go from being the Mount of Uhud, Mount Uhud, this is what they were saying, Mount Uhud. Listen here, it's not an exaggeration, Mount Uhud. Mujahid, they say he was a warrior in Allah's cause. And the people are tested based off of their knowledge of the scholar and then their association with the scholar. What do you say about Sheikh Fulan? If you say, I don't know who he is, say you're clearly not Salafi. Or he's evil, or he backslide people, or he's this, or you're an innovator, you're shaitan, you're dajjal. How does a person go from that status to being called jahil? He's ignorant. He's an ignoramus. He's a fitna maker. He's the dajjal, he's a shaitan, he's this and he's that. He's destroyed the dawah, he's done this. How does that happen? I'm asking Abu Sa'id. Even if, let's say, he apostated and left Islam, would you call him an ignoramus? And just yesterday you called him Einstein. His theories are wrong. He changed. But does that intelligence just what? How does that work? And most importantly, why are you so fanatical in your praise or dispraise of people? That's the mushkila. That's the problem. Everybody understand this? And this applies to everyone. And it's not just specific to scholars as well. Anyone who has a status. Everybody understand this? Arrogance and conceit is no less more of a crime than extended humility. A person being too humble, in which he lies and denies the reality. And the same applies to putting someone above their status and what? Taking them from their status. Everybody clear this? So stop this. This is a warning. The scholars and people of knowledge have different what? Have different levels. Respect them in general. This one, that one, etc. Detail. Moving forward. It says here, Babun Jami'un. Or Babu Tarh al-Alim al-Mas'alata al-Muta'allim. Not spreading the fa'idah but giving an issue to one of his students. Mukhtar, what's the ruling on wiping over a turban? Can you make wudu and wipe over a turban? Yes or no, Mukhtar? You don't know. So that's a mas'ala. That's a what? Mas'ala. Look it up. Search it. Everybody understand this? And that's a way of teaching as well. Next chapter, he says, Babun Jaami'un li nashr al-ilm. A comprehensive chapter regarding spreading knowledge. And it's from the most important etiquettes. Is you don't make money to just throw it in a bank. You only seek knowledge to do what? To disseminate, to spread it. Abdul Qawi? You get those degrees, you go overseas to do what? To spread it. Yani, la. It's no yani. You learn to do what? To spread it. And that's obviously, just like the other chapters, understood in the light of all of the texts. A time in which is improper to speak. A time in which you may not be qualified to speak. But the general concept, the constitution is that knowledge is made or is obtained to do what? To be spread and not to be hidden and kept from the people. Next chapter says, Babun Jami'un fi adab al-alim wal-muta'allim. A comprehensive chapter regarding the etiquette of the learner and the student. Next chapter, Fadlun aw faslun fil insafi fil ilm, is regarding being just and being fair with regards to knowledge. This right here we can write 20 books on in 2018. Be fair, yahi. Don't be oppressive. You don't know something, say what? You don't know. You do so know something, and there's nothing that prevents you what? Spread it. Don't attack people. Don't backbite people. Don't hate people. Don't be jealous and envious and malicious. Don't be nasty. Be what? Be just. And even if someone doesn't agree with you, or you feel someone has this, respect their status. Brother Allah, I don't think he should have done what he did. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have went there. I wouldn't have done that lecture there. But I cannot just disrespect Brother Allah. And all of the years out of his life, he spent learning and teaching and spreading ilm. And I totally disregard. He has no status. He has no benefit. He has no knowledge. Don't take from him. He's nothing. That's not what, Mukhtar? It's not being fair. It's not being just. We differ on issue. That's not being what? It's not being just. Moving forward. فصل فيما ينبغي أن يتحلى به العالم. The chapter of how the scholar is to adorn himself. How he is to what? Adorn himself. يتحلى حلية. In other words, literal translation, the jewelry. The jewels that he's supposed to what? Wear. From them is what? One ring is what? Humility. Humility. The more knowledge you have, the more what? Humble and light, easygoing upon the people. Another chain that he wears is what? Wisdom. He's not a fool. He's not reckless. He's what? He's wise. Another ring that he wears is what? Courage. He's not a coward. He's not afraid. He's not scared to stand up and speak the truth, no matter who likes it. Another robe or cloak that he wears is what? He's Sadiq, he's truthful, Sadiq. He's not a liar. The crown that he wears is he's never caught in scandal. This scandal, he was with this woman, he was with this girl, he took this money, he did this, he did that. Scandal. Something's wrong in all of these scandals. Something is what? Something's wrong. Someone can say that you made this statement, you did this, fight, manchi. But that you're a womanizer, you're a drunkard, you stole money, you embezzled money, you cheated the Muslims out of money, and it keeps happening, something is what? Seriously wrong. Even if it can't be proven, but why are they continually throwing your name in what? Scandal. You're supposed to be the furthest from scandal. Everybody clear on this? The things, the adornment that you wear as a scholar, you adorn yourself through these beautiful etiquettes. You understand this? Being an imam, you have to adorn yourself with certain etiquettes, with certain what? Certain things that you can't do. Certain things that you have to stay away from. And even if they're not haram, but it's just unbefitting of your status. Right? And this goes to show us is that the scholar and the learned person and the one who aspires is not beyond advice. He's not beyond reproach. Oh, you can't say that. Astaghfirullah. No. You are not above the law. And that's why the people of knowledge, they mention that the Khalifa, the leader of the Muslims, if he does certain acts and crimes, he's now liable to what? Hudud. He's not above what? And it's sad that oftentimes the kuffar, they may understand this more than we do. Because a president can be what? Impeached. Removed from office. Because he did something that was against the what? The police. They stop you, they pull you over, get out the car, open this up. No. Doesn't work like that. They come into your house, he has to have a what? There's rules. They're not above the what? They're not above the law. Those who enforce the law are not what? Above the law. Even though this doesn't happen but so often. A police officer shoots a man 20 times, 10 times. He said, I was scared. He had something black in his hand. It was dark at night. It was a cell phone. So you had to shoot him 12 times, 16 times, 41 bullets were fired. 41 bullets were fired. Let's say he had a gun. Or he had some type of dark object in his hand. And he was acting aggressive. And he didn't listen. Get on the ground right now. And he didn't listen. Okay, no problem. You shot at him. You hit him in the shoulder or the chest. You shot above his head. You shot him in the leg. But you emptied 12 bullets in his chest and head. And then you walk off. What type of justice is that, huh? And if you're that cowardly, you're unbefitting of being a police officer. Are you a scaredy cat? You're training? How much weapons and bullets and ammunition do you have on you? And he has a knife. Or he's hollering and cursing. Are you that cowardly? You don't have that type of composure? Then the system has failed in making you an enforcer of the law. But the rule is that he's not above what? He's not above the law. Someone tapped your phone. They spied on you. They took things. They had an illegal search. A good lawyer says that the evidence is what? Contaminated. No, my client has to walk free. You have no right doing that. Those who enforce the law and explain the law, they aren't what? Above the law. And it's something that we have to understand. There's no scholar that's above the kitab and sunnah. And if he says or does something that's wrong, he is to be taken to what? Account. Everybody clear on this? Next chapter he says, فَصْلٌ فِي مُخَاطَبَةِ النَّاسِ عَلَى قَدْرِ عُقُولِهِمْ. He says, speaking to the people based off of their understanding. Don't give people something that's too much, too big, too difficult for them to swallow. Don't pour too much into their cup. Something that's too exotic, too much of a vintage wine. They can't drink it. It's too much. Give them something what? Simple. Based off of what? Their level. Apple juice, huh? Sprite. You sit and want a connoisseur drinker, then it's what? A different story. You go to the cellar. Everybody understand this? Metaphorically speaking. Matter what? Metaphorically speaking. And someone says, astaghfirullah, ya can you say this? The brother's talking about wine and the masjid and champagne and this and that. The Quran talks about wine. The Quran does what? Talks about wine. In paradise, right? Not only in paradise, but Allah also affirms what? Manafi'ul linnas. He says benefit in wine and gambling. Allah affirmed a virtue and a benefit to wine and gambling. So you can't even say, you can't even mention it, you can't even use it in a metaphor. That's what? That's, you're having a bad day, right? Talking like that. Everybody clear this or not? Everybody understand this? Moving forward. He says, فَصْلٌ يَجْمَعُ بَعْضَ الْمُتَفَرِّقَاتِ عَنْ سِمَاتِ الْعَالِمِ وَالْمُتَعَلِّمِ. He says further etiquette, further manners regarding the learner and the teacher. فَصْلٌ فِي الصَّمْتِ وَحَمْدِهِ. The next chapter is keeping silent and the virtue of keeping silent. Talking too much, unnecessarily, excessively, talking without knowledge. You're unsure, following someone, talking is dangerous. Obviously, this chapter, like all the chapters, is what? Understood in the light of everything else. Because every narration that you mentioned that Imam Ahmed refused to talk, or he refused to give the fatwa, or refused to give the hadith, there's another athar in which he what? Gave it. And the stupidity of many of us, unfortunately, and I say this bluntly, the stupidity is that people, they use these different statements, despite what the Quran and Sunnah says. The Quran and Sunnah says to do what? Keep silent, or to do what? What does the Quran say? Mukhtar, give me a verse. Give me one verse in which Allah says, be quiet. Don't talk. Yalla. What verse Allah says don't talk? When the Quran is being read. That doesn't say nothing about talking. That's listening to the Quran. Where does it say to not to talk? Be silent. Now we have verses that talk about the tongue bearing witness against you. Those who speak without knowledge. Those who make lies against Allah. Those who say this, those who say that. The Quran is full of that, full of those verses. But what does it say? Be silent. And when it comes to knowledge and da'wah and jihad, what does the Quran say? It tells us what? Allah says and say the what? What good is the Quran? You memorized it, you recited it in Ramadan if you can't quote it. What good is your six-shooter if it's not on your hip? And if you can't what? Quick draw. Huh? Allah says, say the truth, speak the truth, call to Allah, do this, do that. That's what the Quran is full of. The Prophet ﷺ's hadith, he encourages people to do what? Where? What is it the Prophet ﷺ says, remain silent?
I don't know exactly when he said that. Basically, if there's nothing good to say.
That doesn't say remain silent. There's a condition. If you don't have anything, then you keep silent. Give me an absolute prohibition of speaking or command to keep silent. Keep scratching your beard. Everybody clear on this? And the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ tells the people and encourages people to do what? To teach, to learn. And deeper than that, the athar. The statements of the ulama, Sufyan al-Thawri, this one, that one, Malik said, I would be silent, I wouldn't give the answer, I will push it to the next man, so on and so forth. They use this. Say, the brother's giving classes. He's answering questions. He has 2 and 3 channels. Look, he's against the Salaf. Look, they said be quiet. Why is he giving answers? Why is he speaking? Why? The one that you're quoting, who is in the Quran and Sunnah, how do you know that he even said this? Except that he did what? Where are you getting the athar from unless they did what? They had to talk. They had to say it. Imam Ahmed had to say, don't speak about an issue which no one has preceded you in. He had to do what? And his student had to do what? Pass it on. Ultimate stupidity. Everybody clear on this? Ultimate what? Stupidity. The proof that you're using is actually a proof what? Against you. There would be no Hassan al-Basri in his statements if Hassan al-Basri didn't what? He had to talk. Let alone the fact that for every effort that you find, don't talk, don't answer a question, there's going to be a what? Another one. Another effort in which Hassan al-Basri did what? And gave ilm, bikathra, in abundance. Abu Hurairah had how many students? They said 700-800 students learned from him. Everybody clear on this or not? So it's very important to understand the balance. The what? The balance. Let alone these statements, these athar, they are not the Quran and what? Sunnah. Next chapter, he says here, فصل في رفع الصوت في المسجد وغير ذلك من آداب العلم. Raising one's voice in the masjid. Raising one's voice in the masjid and other etiquettes of knowledge. Some people say class should not be given in the masjid. Lectures should not be given in the masjid. Many imams said this. Yes, they said the masjid is not made for this. The masjid is supposed to have what? Hudu, sakina. The Prophet says, you see someone buying or selling, say this to them. Don't ask about a lost animal, what? In the masjid, because the masjids aren't built for this. And he mentions what is correct with regards to this. Can the voice be raised, what? In the masjid. He says, وَغَيْرِ ذَلِكِ مِنْ أَدَابِ الْعِلْمِ. And other etiquettes of what? Knowledge. Next chapter. فَصْلٌ فِي السِّمَاتِ الَّتِي يَنْبَغِي أَنْ يَتَحَلَّى بِهَا الْعَالِمُ. Once more. The basic conduct and behavior that the scholar is to adorn himself with, like the previous chapters. فصل في مدح التواضع وذم العجب وطلب الرياسة. He says the virtue of humility and the dispraise of conceit, being stuck on yourself, and a person seeking authority. And once more, this chapter is understood what? In light of everything else. Let alone the fact that you cannot just accuse someone of being arrogant and conceited. You don't know what's in someone's heart. And the moment you start pointing the finger, you automatically do what? You leave yourself open for a counterpunch. So if you say that I'm arrogant and I'm stuck up, maybe I am. Mumkin. The brother, he said this. Not to my face, of course, but he said this. He said, why the brother always recording himself? Why does he have a video every time? Why do you have to be in the video? Maybe I want to see myself. Mumkin. So hey, Allah knows best. But if you say that about me, then I'm going to say, maybe you're jealous and envious. Will you accept that? La astaghfirullah, la akhi. Okay, well then what? The same applies to what? You can't say what I'm doing and so on and so forth. My actions prove that I love myself, and your actions prove that you hate yourself and you're jealous of me. Everybody clear on this? You're too full of yourself, you're too headstrong. Why don't you ever say you don't know? Who gives 2 hours question and answer session? People say this. Maybe. But what if I said that you're ignorant and you don't know the answer? And you're mad that you can't? Would you accept that? They're going to say no. So, what? Everybody clear on this or not? So this has to be understood in the light and in the balance. Next chapter. Faslun fi tark al-alim. Let alone the fact that the people in your circle, how much talking do they do? How many fatwas do they pass? And if you want to get technical, you have someone who has no shyness. This person hasn't studied formally anywhere, and he doesn't hold back his tongue from speaking about the honor of men and women and talking about issues that many ulama would say, ask someone else. This is a fact. So if anyone's full of himself and conceited, it's your leader that can barely speak Arabic, some jahil that doesn't know the pain of hunger. You know what it's like to go to sleep with no food in Medina? Do you know what it's like to have no food? This is not an exaggeration, to have no food, to be hungry, or to be cold. This is a reality. This person speaking and talking, he has never experienced any of that. Forget knowledge and qualifications and credentials. You don't even know what it's like. I think you should do what? Uskut. Jazakallah khairan. For both of our sake. So if you say that this person's arrogant or I'm arrogant, then the same applies to what? At least I'm arrogant with some type of what? Some type of credentials. You're conceited. You're talking with what? You have an empty bag, an empty sack. This is very dangerous. Next chapter, he says, فَصْلٌ فِي تَرْكِ الْعَالِمِ مَا لَا يُحْسِنُهُ وَتَرْكِ الْمُفَاخَرَةِ بِمَا يُحْسِنُهُ إِلَّا أَنْ يَضْطَرَّ إِلَى ذَلِكَ. He says that the learned one should leave off that which he doesn't know. And leave off that which you're not good at. Leave off that which you're not proficient at. I don't know this. I haven't studied this. Or I know a little bit. I've studied it, but that's not my field. I don't feel that I'm that good to deal with it. And also, you should avoid bragging about that which you do know. Unless there is a necessity. Unless there's a what? A necessity. What will be a necessity, Abdul Khawai, for someone to brag or boast? Someone's trying to discredit you, disfame you, or defame you. Or, let's say in the masjid, someone is going up to give the khutbah. The khatib couldn't make it today. He's sick. And the brother says, I'll do the khutbah, or let him do the khutbah. And someone says, no, I'll do it. Trust me, I can do it. I'm qualified. Because he knows that this brother's going to get on the minbar and do what? He's going to mess it up. He's going to what? He's going to mess it up. There's a need in which you have to prove and say that you know more for the purpose of keeping people from misguidance. Everybody clear on this? And there are other examples of that as well. Moving forward. فَصْلٌ فِي أَدَابِ الْعَالِمِ وَالْمُتَعَلِّمِ. He mentions another chapter about the etiquettes of the learner and the etiquettes of the teacher. Once more. بَابُ مَا رُوِيَ فِي قَبْضِ الْعِلْمِ وَذَهَابِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. The chapter regarding knowledge being snatched away. And the people who hold that knowledge and wield that knowledge being taken away. And this proves many things. From the things that this proves or gives us is that you should seek knowledge while it is available. There's no guarantee that this person is going to be alive. There's no guarantee that this school is going to be accepting students from America. There's no guarantee that your country is going to allow you to study overseas. So do it while it's available. Take advantage of the ulama and the people of knowledge while it's what? Available. And also the danger of ignorance and how there is going to come a time in which the people are going to be misled in abundance. Next chapter he says, باب حال العلم إذا كان عند الفساق والأراذل. He says, the situation of knowledge. What would knowledge be like? When it is possessed and wielded by the sinful, low people. People who are sinful and base. Fusaq. They know a lot, but they're openly sinful. Or they're radil, they're low, base, they're not noble people. Their background, their upbringing, knowledge is supposed to be held where? For the people to respect it. Next chapter, it says, باب استعاذة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من علم لا ينفع وسؤاله العلم النافع. And as a fa'idah, a beneficial point, this here, this doesn't mean that you have to come or you have to be an aristocrat or high-born or noble to seek knowledge and have knowledge. And it can't be from the peasantry or low-born. You find many of the Salaf al-Salih, if not most of them, when you read their biographies, it says, Mawla, min mawalihim. He's a Mawla, meaning he was a freed slave. Or his father was a what? Freed slave. And he took on the lineage of this tribe. He took on the lineage of these people, of this clan. But he's not actually from their blood. Many of them, you'll find in narratives of hadith, they came from low lineage. They came from what? Low lineage. But the knowledge did what? Raised them high. And the people that were high-born, that refused to seek knowledge, they fell down. And this is very important with regards to the history of this country. And how people, they have this stigma, and I'm going to say it. They have this notion that if you come from a certain background or a certain lineage, you can never be a scholar. And you have to be from overseas. You have to come from a certain lineage, a certain background, wherever that lineage is. It's not just a black, white, Arab, black, Pakistani thing. You're black from America. You can't be a scholar, no matter how many years you study, no matter how much you know, no matter what you do, you can never be a scholar. You always be a student. But if there's another black person who comes from Mali or Guinea or Ivory Coast, he can be what? A scholar. So it's not just a black and white thing. People don't say black and white. No. We're talking about different concept here. Or if it is a black and a white thing, or an Arab and a black thing. There's a brother who's from America. He studied overseas for this amount of years. And there's another brother from America. He comes from an Arabian lineage. And he studied for the same amount of years, if not less. They call him scholar, hafidhullah. And they say he's a student, wafaqahullah, if that. This is a sickness. And many people, they have this. Even if they don't verbalize it, but the actions prove that race and genealogy and lineage are the things that determine who can and cannot be a scholar. And this is something which is shattered when you read the biographies of the Salaf al-Salih. He used to be a slave. His father was a slave. He was kidnapped. He was captured. His mother, this, and that. And they sought ilm, and they were ulama. They were muhaddithin, fuqaha, qurra. They had great amount of knowledge, and their lineage wasn't the what? Wasn't the best. You find other athar, you'll be shocked when it comes to racism and prejudice and colorism and tribalism that was existent from that time. There were some of the rulers that spoke against some of the fuqaha. Fulan. He said his nose is too flat and wide. Too flat and wide. But his knowledge can't be denied. Can't deny his ilm. As far as his lineage, his appearance, I could barely look at him. They respected their what? Respected their knowledge. So we have to get out of this mindset. We have to get out of this what? This ignorant slave mindset. Whether you say it or don't say it, whether you implement it or you have to get out of this mindset. We have to shake this. Knowledge knows no color or race or sex or gender as well. Men are ulama, men are scholars, men can be students of knowledge. Women should just stay in the house and breastfeed. That's it. Wallahi, this is a reality in which brothers will try to prevent women from learning. For one reason or another, we have to get out of that mindset. Knowledge for whoever is willing to what? Seek it and sacrifice for it. Wherever you are, wherever you come from. Knowledge has no racial hatred or prejudice. There's no caste system in ilm. Everybody clear on this or not? Next chapter, he says here, باب استعاذة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من علم لا ينفع وسؤاله العلم النافع. How the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم sought Allah's refuge from knowledge which is non-beneficial, unbeneficial. And how he asked Allah for beneficial knowledge. Asked Allah to allow you to benefit from your studies and to learn and to help yourself and help your family and seek Allah's refuge from knowing and not acting and behaving ignorantly. How can you be a scholar, a student, but you behave like an ignoramus? You have to ask Allah to protect you from that. Next chapter, he says, باب ذم العالم على مداخلة السلطان الظالم. He says, the warning and the dispraise for the scholar to enter upon the oppressive ruler, the tyrannical ruler. If I didn't read out of this book, if I just said it, that a scholar shouldn't enter upon a tyrannical ruler, they would say I'm what? You're speaking ill of scholars or what? Khawarij, Haraki, Ikhwani. So the people would say, and they say, wait, slow down. Ibn Abdul Barr said it, and he quoted the hadith, the dalil, and the athar of the Salaf. So this is another example of how many modern day things, not all, but many, are not from the organic way of the Salaf al-Salih. They're alien and they're foreign. Many things that are norms today, the Salaf, they may spit up and vomit if they heard and they saw people calling and attributing themselves to ilm doing. And from that is what? It says entering upon the oppressive ruler. He didn't say shaking his hand, smiling with him, dancing with him, accepting a gift from him, giving him a gift, being under his protection. This is a reality. They said the sheer act of doing what? Entering upon them, going to his palace, going into his room. Why did they have this position? Because they did not feel safe for a person to be what? Bought out. For a person to be purchased. Or if not purchased, persuaded. And a human being is a what? He's a human being. He's persuasive. Someone's giving you this gift. He's taking care of you. He's funding you. He's this and he's that. It's natural for you to feel some inclination towards him. It's natural for you to have some type of sympathy and softness towards saying what needs to be what? What needs to be said. And this is one of the reasons why the Salaf al-Salih, they didn't like this. Let alone keeping silent upon his dhulm. He's a clear wrongdoer. He oppresses people. He locks people up. He tortures people. He murders people. He's an evildoer. And you go, Assalamu alaikum, kaif halak, you smile, you hug, you do, you this and you that, and you take his gifts. And you don't tell him to fear Allah, ittaqillah. I'm not going to enter upon you. I fear the curse of Allah. That's something seriously wrong with that scholar. Everybody understand this? This is an example of how many things today, which are called da'wat al-salafiyah, isn't the actual what? It's in the way of the Salaf al-Salih. And then many, many other issues what? As well. Many other issues as well. And if you're saying that you're Salafi, know for sure that that's a huge responsibility. It's a responsibility. It's not a cheap thing that you can say. That means you try to follow the Salaf in what? All aspects of the deen, and not just 3 or 4. Everybody clear on this? Moving forward, he says in the next chapter, باب ذم الفاجر من العلماء وذم طلب العلم للمباهاة والدنيا. The dispraise of the wicked scholar. The wicked scholar. And the dispraise of seeking knowledge to boast and to have worldly gain. Once more, this goes to show that just because a person is a scholar or a student of knowledge, they have ilm, doesn't mean that they're what? Perfect and pious. And it doesn't mean that they're beyond the rules. Everybody clear on this? And that it is a reality. That someone can have ilm in abundance, and they can be what? They can be a criminal. They can be wicked. May Allah protect us from that. باب ما جاء في مساءلة الله عز وجل العلماء يوم القيامة عما عملوا فيما علموا أو فيما علموا. The next chapter is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask the scholars. He will ask them on the day of judgment about how they implemented what he taught them or what they were taught. That it's a responsibility. You have ilm, it's now a what? A serious what? Responsibility. You say, Allah, I'll go overseas to Medina. I don't want to be an imam. I don't want to be a role model. I just want to go learn and benefit my family. I graduate and I'm going to live there for the rest of my life. I'll teach English. I've made hijrah. You can't do that. If you didn't want to deal with the people and help out the people and teach the people, then you shouldn't have received that degree. Saudi Arabia, they did not spend all of that money on you for you to live a comfortable, peaceful life. That's not what they gave you their funding for. They only taught you and funded you and paid thousands of dollars on you for you to teach and spread knowledge. And that is why on the degrees, Allah knows best if it's still on the degrees now, but when I got my degree, on the degree there's a dua. They mention your name, where you come from, your GPA, and he has completed his evaluated courses, etc., so on and so forth. And then it says, وَنَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ أَنْ يَسْلُكَ بِهِ سَبِيلَ الْعُلَمَاءِ الْعَامِلِينَ. And it says, and we ask Allah to put him on the path of the scholars who implement their knowledge. That's on your degree. Does that say that from a Harvard degree or Yale? It does not want to say none of that, huh? Good luck, this is that, so on and so forth, fraternity, skull and bones, maybe, whatever is on that. Your degree is handed to you with a what? An iron anvil, a heavy, weighty responsibility. And if you're unwilling to fulfill that responsibility, then don't accept that. There's nothing wrong with seeking knowledge just for yourself and your family. But not on that level. Not what? Not on that level. Next chapter, he says, فصل في كسب طالب العلم المال وما يكفيه من ذلك. He says, earning a living, seeking money, having money for the student of knowledge. And this chapter has to be understood in the light of what? Everything else. The time of Hassan al-Basri, in which a person could sell leather sandals outside the mosque. A person can sell dates or miswax outside of the mosque and make a basic living. Can you do that today? How much is rent for a one-bedroom apartment in New York City? $2,000 for one bedroom. Gas, electric, water, socks, underwear, deodorant, toothpaste, toothbrushes. You have a wife, her hijab, her kimar, her makeup, her perfume, her underwear, all of that stuff. How much does that cost? So I'm going to, the brother, he said, I want to work at the hospital for 8 hours out the day, 10 hours out the day. And then I'm going to come home. What are you going to do after those 10 hours of the Khali? What are you going to feel like? What do you, but in general, you worked all those hours. But no, it's not enough. You still have your wife to look after, your kids to look after. You have this, you have many, many things. When are you going to seek what? Knowledge.
Just because you're the brother from getting married.
La. We're trying to make a reality here. So brothers, they say, I don't want to be the imam in the masjid. I don't want to take no money for classes. Or they say, you can't take money for classes. You shouldn't do that. There's no such thing as an honorarium. And so on and so forth. Seek ilm. They said the knowledge, the wealth will come to you. Where was it coming to say? It'll come. It'll come. It'll, magically what? It'll come. Everybody understand this? You have to be realistic, guys. You have to be what? Realistic. If I asked you right now, Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz, rahimahullah, what was his day job? What did he do for a living? Uber. Drove a taxi. What was Sheikh bin Baz's day job? Exactly. He was blind, but what was his day job? Sheikh bin Baz, his day job was being a mufti, being a scholar, teaching. Everybody understand this? In other words, you're stuck between two things now. Freeing yourself to study, to learn, to review, to prepare, and to give, and seeking wealth. Both of them cannot be what? Equally done. One has to be what? More than the other. So you get a basic amount of ilm, la bas. Work 10 hours, I still study, I still get it in, alhamdulillah. But you're not going to be a student of knowledge, let alone scholar, someone that's going to excel, until you have hours out of the day just to learn and to study and to teach and to practice. Everybody understand this? And this is a general concept. There's a general what? Concept. You look at the Renaissance painters of Italy. They were only Renaissance painters because they had what? They had patrons. They had people that what? Funded them and bought their paintings and supported them. That's when he had all day to work on what? This painting. You can't work on a masterpiece painting, a Rembrandt, and you're worrying and stressing where your next meal is coming from. It's common sense. Everybody clear on this? So we have to understand that. We have to what? We have to understand that. In light of the past, in light of the current times. And that's a very long discussion in itself. And the only reason why we're mentioning these points and extracting them is because there's widespread confusion. And there are widespread lies. And many people have been mentally perverted into thinking what is the way and what isn't the way. And what's right and what's wrong. Widespread. And this is the most dangerous thing. When you take the thing that's supposed to be the orthodox way, the closest way, and then you taint it and dilute it. That's the most dangerous thing right there. Because you buy candy, you buy some juice, or you buy a soft drink and a soda, and you know that what's in that soda. You know that this is genetically modified. You know that it's food coloring. You know that it's artificial flavor. So you know what it is. But you take that which is supposed to be organic and raw, and then there's preservatives and dyes and this in it, and you have organic label and you give it to the people. Now it's what? It's done. It's no hope now for the people to eat naturally and the people to eat healthy anymore. And that's what has happened. That is what? That is what has happened, and that's dangerous. Next chapter he says here, باب والخبر عن العلم أنه يقود إلى الله تعالى على كل حال. He says the information or the report, the narration, that knowledge leads to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ala kulli hal. He says no matter what the case, knowledge leads one what? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب. There are many other chapters, perhaps we'll mention on another day. I believe in this summarized perusing through the book or the table of contents, you can see how important the book is and how comprehensive what the book is and how needed it is for a student of knowledge to stick his nose on this book on a what? On a daily basis, huh? On a daily basis. Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. My success is only with him and through him and only by him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I only intended advice for myself and advice for my brothers and sisters. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.